Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Larson.
Here.
Commissioner Angel.
Here.
Commissioner Arbkey.
Here.
Commissioner Jennings.
Here.
Commissioner Peck.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I will call for a citizens forum. This is where anyone from the public can come up and speak on anything not on today's agenda. Seeing that there is none, we'll move on. There are no awards and proclamations, so we'll move on to public hearings and items scheduled for a certain time.
Item 5.1, public hearing to consider submittal of the 2009 Community Development Block Grant Recovery Act application for housing rehabilitation activities within the corporate city limits of the city of Salina.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Ms. Servant.
Mayor Larson and Commissioners, thank you for altering your schedules today for this special meeting. I do apologize for the inconvenience it must have caused each of you. I miscalculated the date to publish the required public hearing notice. Fortunately, by being able to meet today, the submittal deadline can still be met if you decide to approve the application, the proposal before you. As a side note, I've created a grant-specific check sheet to prevent future mishaps. The CDBG Recovery Act is different from the last proposal presented. It is for homeowner and tenant-occupied units. Assistance can be given to rental units and manufactured housing if certain standards are met. The amount of grant dollar per unit is $18,000. It's a little bit lower. Kansas weatherization funds can be applied to occupied units, making another $6,000 available to assist a homeowner. Kansas Accessibility Modification Funds, CAMP, that we help OCCK implement, are available for the project. And environmental reviews must begin prior to the grant award announcement, which is highly unusual. Similar to the last proposal, no matching funds are required, which is very different from typical CDBG applications. And we still have many cross-cutting federal requirements to comply with, and you saw in the grant materials that there's quite a list. There is quite a need for transparency and frequent timely reporting and an emphasis on quick starts. And that's one of the most important areas for scoring in the application. In fact, readiness is 40 points. Basically, the proposal is to request funds to rehabilitate approximately 16 homes from anywhere within Salina. You find two maps in your application. One is with the required map showing the city limits, and the second is an area that will be given preference by point scoring in the individual application. So if someone from the Indian Village area applies, all things being equal, their application would be weighted slightly higher than another similar application that scores the same. And basically, when a person makes an application, they are scored on the basis of, is it a single-parent household? Is it a person more than 65 years of age? Or do they have some kind of physical or other protected handicap? So all those things go into the scoring, and we do receive quite a few applications very routinely, and we look at all of them on a systematic basis. So it will be pretty simple to do that qualification. In the past 8 months, we've done a house-by-house assessment of all the census tracts that are rated by the census as low to moderate income tracts. And so a pretty good idea of where the homes that are located that are going to need some help. The exterior of many of the properties do not appear to be terribly distressed, but our experience with the local program is that they may be keeping up the outside. It doesn't look like it's going to fall down, but inside there are serious things like electrical system problems, plumbing problems, and whatnot. Typically, a homeowner will live with a problem for quite a while before they ask for help. I would entertain your questions.
Questions of staff?
Have we run a program like this before?
We have in the past. Our last one was home funds, which were very similar to CDBG, and it's home owner occupied rehabilitation. So yes, we have some experience at this. Our housing rehab specialist is different from what we did last time, but yes, we've run this program, a similar program, and we've also worked with the North Central Regional Planning Commission in producing this kind of a project.
How was the participation? Did we use all the funds?
Yes, it's not generally difficult to find the funds to be used, although you may see as part of the application I've secured a pledge from a local radio station to help us get the word out so that the timeliness will be there of getting enough grant applications in. We have found with our local housing rehab applications that people tend to come in and get the application but not complete the paperwork. And so that's one of the things that will help push along is, Mrs. Jones, do you need help finding your insurance agent's name, or not quite that detailed, but sometimes we do sort of have to walk people through the process.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have enough people on your staff to help you with that if it becomes a little overwhelming with the people that may need assistance? There will be a temporary sort of a bump of demand. However, a lot of it is we can get advocates to help these people as well. And as I said, we're on a daily basis we receive inquiries. In fact, that the rehab specialist was on the phone this morning with a couple of people who, not for this program, were wanting assistance. Yes, I think we have capacity to handle those. Okay, good. That's good to know. Any other questions?
Will there be additional cost to the city from NCRPC for doing these administrative responsibilities?
NCRPC is willing and able to do the administrative for the amount that is set aside in the grant. However, because of the detailed amount of work required for environmental review, they do request $2,000 per project, and that's their typical fee. The work had to begin, actually I sent some letters on Monday to 8 agencies for their comment. And so that is something that started up front, and that's why they're requesting $1,000 immediately. And it's quite unusual to have an environmental review in this depth before the project, but that's what's going to be required.
I just saw that this note in here, administrative services are to be formalized by written agreement between the city and NCRPC. I didn't know if that included this $2,000 for the environmental, if there was other costs involved. So
it does, Commissioner Angel, and it's a total of $27,000. If we're awarded the full amount that we've requested, they would be eligible to for a $25,000 administrative fee. They could choose to award us less, and in which case the admin fee from the state would be less.
okay.
Judy, quick question on the funding. The anticipated grant event timeline shows the grant agreement with Commerce is August 23rd, and 50% of the funds have to be used by November 20th. When it says used, does that mean actually paid out, work done, certain work done, and amount dollars paid out?
Like so many elements of this particular grant, we have only that language to follow. The state really hasn't told us.
So
that's their response, is to write that language and to say that's what we're saying. The feds want money spent by 120 days after a grant award, and so what the meaning of that is somewhat in question. In the past, it's been if you have those funds committed, it counts, and certainly the reporting allows if you have the funds committed that you're okay.
But we don't know for sure what this means. It kind of leads to my next question, which is what do they do if let's say we're at 40% funds used by November 20th. Do we know what that means?
If we only have 40%, I don't think the state has contemplated what they're going to do. They've just been scrambling to get these regs out. So
Okay.
it's really an unknown territory for all the staff involved.
Okay.
They were given a very brief time. I think they had less than 15 days from the time when the feds gave them the regulations to get it out to the cities. So it's been a lot of haste involved.
Any other questions? Thank you. I'll open it up to public comment. If There is none. I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the City Commission for action. Is this one or two actions? Just one to approve the resolution?
Got one and two. I believe Judy's going to do a staff report on this resolution.
I believe you close the hearing and then you go on to the next budget, the next item on the agenda, which is...
Before we take action on both items?
Right.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and go on to 5.2.
Resolution number 096636, authorizing the preparation and filing with the Kansas Department of Commerce of a Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Recovery Act.
Okay.
And attached with this blue sheet, you do see more details. There is the administration agreement which sets forth the specific duties of each of the parties. Basically, North Central Regional Planning Commission is responsible for virtually all the administrative duties. We will need to gather some information and feed to them. It's a pretty minor role. It's significant, but it's not something that will be overly taxing to us. Making the reports on a timely basis and verifying things that need to be done is their job. We'll gather the application information, they'll vet it. They will prepare bid documents, they will hold the bid conference, they will deal with the contractors, they'll be responsible for vetting the contractors, and if there's an incident on the job, they'll be dealing with that contractor and the homeowner. So they bear most of the responsibility. Then the companion document about lead work safe practices is something that's required with any grant that has federal funds. We have to address those regulations, and NCRPC pretty much led the state in ability to inspect housing rehab projects for lead hazards, to write the scopes of work, and to arrange for the work to be done. The resolution simply authorizes the mayor. It supports the application, and it authorizes the mayor to sign all the documents, including both of the agreements for administrative and lead safe work practice services.
Any questions regarding the resolution? If not, I'll open it up to public comment. And with none, I will bring it back to the commission for final action.
Mayor, I'd move we adopt resolution number 09-6636, authorizing you to sign the application and supporting certifications and agreements, and authorize you to sign 2 contracts for grant administration and housing rehabilitation services to be provided by North Central Planning Commission.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number 096636, authorizing the preparation and filing with the Kansas Department of Commerce of a Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Recovery Act. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Administration.
Item 6.1, resolution number 096642, consenting to the assignment of a portion of the development agreement in connection with the Lambert's Addition Tax Increment Financing District from Salina Partners LLC to One Kansas LLC.
Mr. Scruggs.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Following the date that we set this special meeting, we received a time-sensitive request from the developers of Coles asking us to facilitate what they were trying to accomplish in terms of transferring some property. And so that necessitated putting item 6.1 on today's agenda. The initial development agreement between the city and Salina Partners LLC provided a number of terms in terms of the development plan for the Coles project, as well as ongoing requirements in the way of insurance requirements and other things. One of the primary investors in the Salina Partners LLC project was an individual who's incorporated as One Kansas LLC, and for tax benefit purposes, they had arranged to transfer title of the Coles parcel to One Kansas LLC, and that needed to occur before Friday of this week. As they were preparing that, they recognized that our development agreement had specific provisions where the city of Salina needed to consent to a transfer of ownership of any of the property or assignment of the responsibilities in the development agreement. And by the time they realized that, it was the end of last week, and they were on this short timeline. So, city staff, including the city attorney and bond counsel, have reviewed the provisions of the development agreement as it relates to that consent to assignment, and I've summarized some of that in the blue sheet. The development agreement provides that the transfer is subject to verification by the city attorney, that the transfer complies with the terms of the agreement, as well as a determination by the city manager that the proposed assignee has qualifications and financial responsibility as reasonably determined by the city manager necessary to adequately fulfill the obligations of the developer with respect to the portion of the redevelopment district being transferred. In this particular case, the portion being transferred is the Coles project. That project is complete. The remaining responsibilities really relate to ongoing insurance, which Salina Partners LLC will still provide, and this new individual will also be required to provide. And then there are some tenant restrictions where we have to consent to tenants on the outlots, things like those. But my point is, the vast majority of those responsibilities are up and evidenced by the fact that Coles is up and operating. The development agreement also then does provide that the city approval shall not be unreasonably withheld, conditioned, or delayed. So with respect to compliance with the agreement, we've concluded that this is compliant. With respect to their financial wherewithal, the exposure is very limited to ongoing responsibility, and we've concluded that this is not relieving Salina Partners LLC of any of their original responsibilities. It's adding One Kansas LLC as another party to the agreement. So we are not seeing any additional risk or lessening of what we have in the way of commitments. It's actually kind of an expansion. But it would be a transfer of ownership from Salina Partners LLC of the Coles parcel to One Kansas LLC, and that's what necessitates our consent and approval. Consequently, Resolution 096642 is drafted in light of the requirements of the development agreement, and the assignment and assumption of the Lambert's Addition Tax Increment Financing District Development Agreement was also drafted on that basis, and the resolution authorizes the execution of that agreement.
Does this have anything to do with the sale of the...
Well, the property has been listed for sale for quite some time. In fact, before the Coles project was built, and that's more of a developer investment trying to market that project now that he's completed it. This really has more to do with one of the investors in that initial project needing to get the property in their name solely so that they could basically take a tax write-off for their investment. And so I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it could continue to be marketed to change hands again, but at this point, One Kansas LLC needs to get title in their name to satisfy the IRS.
Okay. Any other questions?
Are there any outstanding things that haven't been completed to do this transfer?
Not anymore. As of 8 a.m. this morning, I think we got everything resolved. We've been scrambling around to deal with some of the minor details, landscaping, getting as-built, getting the insurance certificates resolved, and as of mid-morning today, everything's compliant.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any public comment? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Chair, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 096642, consenting to the assignment of the portion of the development agreement in connection with the Lambert Addition Tax Increment Financing District from Salina Partners LLC to One Kansas LLC.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number 096642, transferring the development agreement in connection with the Lambert's Addition Tax Increment Financing District from Salina Partners LLC to One Kansas LLC. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Mayor, I'd move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.